The feeling behind my eyes. You stood out cause you were in red. Then, against my intentions, I let you turn me violet instead. Summer high, met you in August. New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you.
Hey y'all, my name is Queen Morgana and welcome to my channel. And we're going to be starting a little bit of a new game, let's play legacy thing today. This one is going to be a little different from my Ultimate Decades Challenge in that one, it takes place in modern age, and two, we'll be playing with multiple families, all of which are spellcasters. So, obviously we'll be playing out of Glimmerbrook here. Y'all can't see my mouse, but we're going to be playing 3 different families, and this isn't necessarily something that has rules per se, but it's a few rules that I made up for myself to help build a story and give myself some parameters to work on, essentially. So, first and foremost, this obviously will require the spellcaster game pack, but this is more of like a supernatural let's play as well, so vampires and aliens will also be pretty heavily involved. So I guess I'll list out some of the rules and everything that I'm playing with for myself. You can, possibly play this on your own, take away something, add something of your own. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Like I said, we're playing 3 families. The reason we're playing 3 families is because I'm splitting up the magic. I was pretty inspired by a let's play that Fantasy S did on her channel. Like that was spellcaster based, but basically these are 3 families. And before I get into the backstory and everything, basically these 3 families can all practice alchemy, but they all have to split up the types of magic that they use. With Realm of Magic comes 3 different, oh my gosh, what is it called? 3 different magic houses, I guess, or 3 different types of magic that you can learn. Or of course, logically you can learn all 3, but basically for balance purposes, we're focusing on like them separately. So one family will only be allowed to practice practical magic, the other untamed, and the other will only be allowed to practice mischief magic. All of the families are equal though, and don't have more prestige over the other. Whether or not one has more influence over the other really and solely depends on how they interact and how their society forms around it. So we'll see what happens with them. Once again, only 1 school of magic per family. Any of them can learn alchemy as they please. You don't have to though, but I think it's pretty helpful. Because this will be somewhat legacy based, and these are families, meaning that they act almost like dynasties. So there will have to be an heir that inherits the family name. So in this playthrough, male and female can inherit, or whatever gender they may identify as can inherit. It doesn't necessarily have to be the male or the firstborn or anything, and I'll get to that. Basically, I'm basing this off of once the kids reach a certain age, they choose their heirs based off of who is strong enough to lead the family in the next generation. So they have to win a duel against the leader of the family. So this does not include the person, like whichever parent is married into the family. This is just whoever was born into the family. They have to win again, is the head of the family. And in order to become heir, you have to win a duel against the head. Family leaders make up, I have a magic council, and the only people in the magic council are those who were born in, or if they were a former sage. So, these 3 people make up the leaders of these houses. once the sages get old, or if they get married, or somehow or another they end up in one of these households, because in the game you can't be a sage and be a played household simultaneously. They're the only people that can form the Magic Council. And once again, I'm listing rules, but I'll give my story in, the overarching story and the plot in just a little bit. My spellcasters, my heirs can only marry other spellcasters. This does not mean that the spellcasters are only spellcasters. Even though in the game they'll be listed as spellcasters, I have a hybrid mod, so we might come across some vampire spellcaster hybrids. One of our leaders is a mermaid spellcaster hybrid. We'll meet her in just a bit. But if you aren't inheriting the family name, you can marry who you want. It does not matter. Well, we want them to marry supernatural, but you have to have spellcasters because you have to have spellcaster children. Children, essentially. We prefer that members of other families marry each other, or Spellcaster Society will choose eligible bachelors when the heirs are chosen end of age. And I have a mod that gives all my Sims different genders and sexualities and everything. So Spellcaster Society will also choose based off of that. While I did go ahead and play that personally, it's not necessarily that big of a deal at the moment. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that right now. Teens take parents. Oh my gosh. I'm saying a lot of words right now, and it'll make more sense as we move forward and I get into these households. But basically, when you come of age in my game, you dye your hair a certain color to show that you're more than human, because spellcasters, most of the time come off as very human. And so a lot of them dye their hair to show that they are a spellcaster. Doesn't mean that everyone with dyed hair is a spellcaster. It just means that's what I'm going to be doing. So once they're a teenager and under training, they'll dye their hair the parents of... They'll dye their hair the same color of their parent, who is the head of the house. And then once they reach actual young adulthood, they can choose their own. Unless they have a parent who already has supernatural hair color and they are born with that hair, then I'll just let them keep it. Back to the thing about, once again, we don't really have any kids where this is a big thing at the moment, but if a sibling has a bad enough relationship, or for possible story purposes, they can challenge the sibling that beat the head of the house. So let's say there's like twins, and one of the twins, like the twins don't get along with each other, and one beats whoever the head of the house is to become heir of the family. The sibling with the bad relationship can challenge that sibling that won with a duel in order to take that heir's, in order to take it back, regardless of if they beat the head of the household or not. We'll see if that comes into play later. Yes, people who are married into the family can only practice that family's magic. So even in the future, if we have someone from the House of the Untamed marry and live with the heir to the House of Practicality, they can no longer learn more untamed magic. They have to learn practical magic. And I'm not going to stop them from using the magic and stuff they already have, but it's not something they'll be using as regularly. Not finally, but every child we have, when they're children, they'll have their fortunes told by having one of their parents either watch the clouds or watch the stars with them. And every bubble that pops up from like the child will be parts of their future. Once again, another idea I got from Fantasy S with her Amazon Vampire Challenge. Finally, Sims that have the erratic or insane traits. It's erratic, but I have a mod that gives my Sims a lot more traits. So one of the two, we're going to say that they have another soul within their body. and, you know, it'll change their personality depending on the life stage. I wrote this because in my first test playthrough, I had two Sims who had the erratic trait. And so one had the soul of a siren, like a dead siren, and the other had the soul of an imp in her. So yes, I just dropped something. Okay. A lot of those rules didn't make sense. And they're not really rules. They're just things I want to play with. But once again, a lot more of what I'm saying will make sense as they come to fruition. I wrote these rules when we already had like kids and everything. And now that I've kind of redone the series to kind of start from scratch, it won't matter or make sense until we get to that point. So let's start off here. Why are you wearing this? Why? At least put on something good. So we're going to start off here. These are the Blackmores. They are the House of the Untamed. So they mostly focus on untamed magic. How do I change your clothes? What? Okay, here we go. Come on. I know it's cold, but let's go back to Arthur. I need you to change clothes right now. Thank you. This lovely young lad is Arthur Blackmore, and he is head of the house for the House of Untamed Magic. Now, let me go over everything first. He's a corporal in the detective career. His aspiration is finding his soulmate, which, he's married to this lovely lady Alice. Wait, she's named Alice? I have an Alice in my other. I promise I did not do that on purpose. If you watch my oh my gosh, Ultimate Decades Challenge, our first child in that challenge is named Alice. Okay, I'm gonna ignore that. This is Arthur. He's passionate, cheerful, motivating, active. He is, I'm gonna say straight just because he's attracted to feminine Sims, but he's gray sexual. He does not want a child right now, which is gonna be an issue because he has to have at least one. You don't have to have multiple kids, but you have to have at least one. Yeah, he's alluring. He also has the lover and jester personalities. He's got a few milestones here. His lifespan dislikes don't really matter right now. So basically, a little bit of a backstory on Arthur. Arthur is of the Blackmore family. Which is a very prominent family in Spellcaster Society. And they're just rich. They rose to power a few hundred years ago and just pretty much stayed in power since. But with that power came a distinct lack of, I don't know, just love for each other, And so by the time Arthur was born, his parents had been in an arranged, loveless marriage. He had no siblings. He was pretty much just raised by a nanny, and he didn't like that. He tried to remain cheerful and happy and get into some hobbies that kind of pass his time and make him feel better, but it was not working out for him at all. He was really popular just because he has such a charming personality. To me, he looks kind of like John Constantine, which was not what I was trying to do, but that's how he turned out. Wow. So he kept the Blackmore name when his parents passed, but he decided to do something completely different from them. So while he is still filthy rich, he decided to be a bit more humble and get this much, much smaller house as opposed to a mega mansion like he was, born in. He feels like it'll force his family to be closer and to interact more. And he also wanted to marry someone he loved, which he did essentially, but which is also why he kind of went against his parents' wishes and pursued a detective career, because he just wants to do good and also make a name for himself. It would have been really easy for him to just stick in the business career and go from there. But he wanted to do actual good and do more with his name. So much is happening. Okay. And And this is just where he kind of ended up. So he's really happy with life. He's not upset that he's only making 38 an hour. Honestly, he gets promoted so quick. He's great at his job and he's really passionate about making a change. Now, besides this, this is the meeting of the houses. He does own a company called Spellcaster Defenders. And basically, it is a set of the detective force that he works at. That's all spellcasters. And their role is to keep spellcasters safe from anything that endangers them, whether that's other supernaturals or themselves or anything like that. They basically just come to the aid and fight and defend whenever it's necessary. Not every defender is in the police force. I think just this guy is, but it's, yeah, very quick introduction, but there's not much going on with Arthur, to be completely honest. He's fine. He's doing great. On to Alice. Alice is his lovely stand-up girl. Is his lovely, lovely wife who, come on, please, I'm begging you. There we go. Well, this is her winter outfit, not her everyday, but you'll see her every day soon. Look, she looks so good. But this is Alice. Alice is actually, yes, she's a spellcaster, as in she has magic, but she's actually an elf, specifically a mountain elf. She was born in the mountains of Mount Komorebi, but there was a bit of a civil war, and when she was younger, her parents fled to Sulani, which is the complete opposite of where any snow elf wants to be. And that's essentially where she was raised. So while she may have the characteristics like the glowing blue eyes and the white hair of a snow elf, she doesn't necessarily have any of the coldness or anything that comes with it because she's from Sulani. So once again, nothing too tragic in her background or anything like that. She works as a field assistant, a conservationalist, in this eco career. Her traits, she's a dog lover, child of the ocean, cheerful, hideous. She is ice proof, so she doesn't get cold at all. So putting her in her winter wear was useless, but okay. Cis, straight, hetero, yeah. But she would love to have a child. She also has a caregiver and jester personalities. Arthur met Alex through the Spellcaster Society when Arthur and his fellow house leaders were chosen to become house leaders because the Spellcaster Society, the elders chose them. They gave them 4 potential people to choose from, 2 men and 2 women. Arthur is straight, so he chose a woman, and this woman was Alice. Well, I'm not gonna say necessarily chose, as in he walked in, was like, "You're pretty," and and grabbed her. But they dated and talked for a while to see if they were just the right fit for one another, and honestly, they clicked immediately. I was not expecting this from the two of them, but these two get along so well, and they're just so cute together. So they were actually the first ones to get married, the first ones in a relationship and the first to get married. So I'm excited to see what happens. However, this will come later because this episode is most likely just going to be introductions. She randomly got this once to flirt with Oberon, who is Nixie's husband. But also, they lived in the house together when they were chosen for Spellcaster Society. Also, you might be thinking, if there's 3 houses, why were there 4 people? Just to give like an extra prospect. That 4th person was not chosen, so she's just chilling. Her name's Sabrina. So I'm gonna let these guys chill. Also, they have a cute little dog. This is not, even though Alice really likes dogs, this is not her familiar. This is just her pet. And her pet named Lily. Lily needs to pee, but Lily, you're gonna have to do that on your own time. So let's go check out one of the other families. once again, very quick. They didn't have much in their background to go from, which is why I kind of started over because the other test file had so much going on. Okay, she's at a photo studio, but I'm gonna bring her here. So this next house we're gonna go to is the House of Mischief, actually. And this house has 3 people instead of 2 because they recently just had a child. So, oh, she's here. This, I'm gonna let her sit down. This right here is our lovely House of Mischief leader, Cersei Mirthforce of the Mirthforce family. Think how pretty she is. Okay. Cersei, she's just a spellcaster, not like an elf or anything like that. She has naturally black hair. She dyed it purple. Arthur has naturally brown hair. He dyed it blonde, to kind of show that they were in tune with themselves magically, I guess. This is her. She was born into Spellcaster Society. She was just a regular person. She grew up with Arthur. They attended academy and everything together. And she was a little shocked that society chose her to lead the House of Mischief and kind of keep balance to the spellcasters in their society. Not that she thought she was bad or anything like that. She wasn't extraordinary. Like, she didn't necessarily stand out. And so she hadn't necessarily planned on, having this type of life. She's not upset about it, though. She jumped at the opportunity. She's so happy to be here. She's a freelance writer. She loves writing. Honestly, she just wants to be fabulously wealthy. She does not care about anything else, per se. Nope, not relationships. Cersei, she's materialistic, a linguist, outgoing, vegetarian. She is on the Arrow A spec. She's aromantic and demisexual, but she's also bisexual. So one of the reasons she didn't get with one of the girls in the house, because there were 2 girls and 2 boys that Spellcast Society picked out, but both of the women were not interested in other women, so not gonna force them to go outside their sexuality or anything like that. She has the sage and jester personalities, and she's business savvy, and she would love to have a child, which is why they have a child. This is her husband James, who's in his work outfit and needs to shave. But this is James. They recently got married. I not gonna lie to y'all, this means nothing to y'all, but I thought that James was gonna marry Nixie, who's the head of the House of Practicality, but we'll get there. James is such a sweetheart. He's appealing. He is self-absorbed, but honestly, it hasn't been used negatively. I will say, as self-absorbed as he is, I think he's more self-absorbed in the way, he knows what he likes and he likes to do that thing and focus solely on that thing. So he might get, distracted doing what he is really passionate about, which personally, he's passionate about gardening, as opposed to worrying about what somebody who he might not care very, very deeply about is doing. He also loves the outdoors. He also would be happy to have a child. So they love their son, Merlin. He's straight. Nothing to report here. He has a caregiver and lover personality. So he's a sweet man overall. He's such a sweetheart. These 2 have a really cute relationship. They were married second, but they didn't have a wedding like Arthur. I feel like I'm smacking in this microphone. He didn't have a wedding like Arthur and Lily did. Arthur and Alice did. Instead, they just kind of got their certificates and just chilled out. She has a good bit of money. Most of this money came from James. He's not from a significant family or anything like that. He just has some money on him. So, and she makes a good bit doing her freelance writing. And, Spellcaster Society didn't want, the leaders of their magic houses to be, poor. So they also lended some funds. So they're living quite comfortably. She loves this house. She's got the biggest plot in Glimmerbrook, and Honestly, she loves it. They just had a son, named Merlin. He's the newest of newborns. So cute. Just the absolute cutest. And I can't wait to see him grow up and see what he gets into. And now, on to the next family. On to the Great Moons. I know I'm speeding through this, but yeah. They're just introductions. This is more like story based than an actual challenge with goals for me. So this Nixie baby, let's let the people see you. I'll put you in this because you're inside. This is her familiar. I don't know its name. Is it Talon? I don't know. Oh, I have a familiars mod so they can like talk to them, and the familiars will also bring collectibles and things for potions without me having to break my back or cheat to make them a potion. The familiar would just bring it as long as the familiar is out. This is Nixie Greatmeal. Nixie is a little different from the other two in that she actually is a hybrid. As you can see over here, at first glance, it's very much the spellcasters things over here with the talent points and mastery of magic and everything. But she has this cute little hydration bar because she's a mermaid, well, half mermaid. So, unlike the other two, she does have a bit more of a backstory where she wasn't raised with, well, she wasn't fully raised within Spellcaster Society. She's actually from Sulani, like, what's her name? I keep wanting to call her Lily, like Alice is, but they never really crossed paths or anything like that because she was raised in a mermaic tribe because she's a mermaid. So basically, her father, I'll let this play. Basically, Nixie's father was just traveling around, came to Sulani, and he and her mother had like a little bit of a fling, and she got pregnant. They really thought nothing of it. I don't think mermaid pods and mermaid families are very strict about family dynamics in that regard. So they don't really stress about having children with someone you're not necessarily married with or anything. But it wasn't until she grew up a little bit where her oh my gosh, her mother and Pod kind of realized Nixie was not like a lot of the other children. She didn't have as many mermaid instincts and showed a lot more accessibility to magic, which isn't a bad thing, but there's this superstition amongst mermaids that a mermaid with magic is a sea witch. And even though that's not a fun term that mermaids with magic mermaids who also are spellcasters like to be called, it's essentially what she is, and they have such a negative connotation that she kind of grew up being a bit ostracized and bullied by a lot of her fellow mermaids. And so once she was a teenager, her mom was never really defensive of her or protective of her. She was definitely ashamed, but because Nixie never really had what is going on? She's glitched. Okay. She never really had an affinity or the instincts of a mermaid. She only ever swam or wanted to swim when her hydration was low. When her hydration was low, she didn't really do the mermaid calls. She found herself getting bored with a lot of the mermaid games and culture and everything like that. She was just much more naturally in tune to her spellcaster side. And her mom just was definitely ashamed of her, unfortunately. So the environment she grew up in was very emotionally negligent, unfortunately. So when she was a teenager, her mother had her move in with her father, told her father, hey, you actually have a child 16 years ago, and come get her. And her dad was like, okay. So he got her, and he did everything right on paper. She had a home and a roof, and now had moved in to Spellcaster Society and could attend academy and actually learn how to use her abilities, but he also was absent. He was a traveler and an adventurer, so he was never there. And then, one of his adventures ended up getting him killed, so he really wasn't around because he was dead. So she was pretty much left on her own, and unfortunately, it kind of ended up being similar to her experience with Mermaid Society, where she was very much ostracized and seen as the others because spellcasters are very much like vampires, where they're big on kind of staying within their, I don't want to call it a race, but they like to stay with spellcasters because the stronger the spellcaster is by blood, the stronger their magic of that child will be. So they're not really big fans of spellcaster hybrids. So she also struggled to kind of fit in there. And even Cersei didn't really like her. Arthur is much closer to her than Cersei is. Cersei does not really like Nixie at all. I don't think it's because she's a hybrid or anything. I think they personalities just don't get well with each other. But oh my gosh, I don't know why she's glitching out like that. Their personalities just never really got along. Sure. That well, but yeah, so she and everyone else was very, very extremely surprised to find that Spellcaster Society selected her to become leader of the House of Practicality, and that's probably because she's just really strong. I think magically, she's the strongest out of all three of them, I believe. Now, whether or not this comes into like battle or anything like that, we're not sure. But she's great at alchemy, magically just very prodigal and very proficient with it. Even though she only started learning magic a few years later than her peers, she was pretty way ahead of the game. And so that made her a great candidate to be a leader of the house. And also would help push the bad connotation that spellcasters have with those who are mixed breed or just mixed. So there's that. But also, she's a little bit of an oddity on her own, whether it was caused by her parents or those around her, because she essentially has to do everything for herself, and she was her own friend. She didn't really have anyone for the longest time. She's absent-minded, freaking unstable, paranoid, and neat. Now, I did say that I would treat the erratic and insane traits as having another soul within the body, but she doesn't have that. She's just this trait is very close to BPD, so we're gonna treat it kind of like that. There are a lot of people just didn't really understand her and kind of ostracized her for that because she's so different from everyone around her. She's gray sexual, gray romantic, questioning orientation, which is new because she wasn't last time I checked. She's neutral about having kids, but she's got a fear of being cheated on, which honestly, with her husband, valid fear. What is this? Oh, yeah. She has the collector trait, and she also has the everyman personality trait. So that's Nixie. And her husband is up here. I did not think these two were going to get married. I knew he was going to have to marry someone because the only two girls in the house were straight. He needs to shave. But I don't know how I feel about him being with Nixie. I thought he was going to get with Cersei for sure because they already have really matching aesthetics and their personalities seemed way closer. Like James, he's self-absorbed, but he's also impulsive and a bit mysterious. So Nixie really liked him. Cersei talked to him for a bit, but it wasn't working out, but she hit it off with James really easy. And so Nixie and him were both left with no choice but each other. which I think kind of fueled this relationship. He's okay. He's not the best person, and they've only been together for a little bit. But anyways, I'm gonna get into him. He's impulsive, self-absorbed, and mysterious. I'm gonna skip this curse thing and I'm gonna come back. But he's gray sexual, likes women, cis, neutral about having gender, about having children, neutral about gender. No. Business savvy and sinister. He works as a mailroom tech. Nixie doesn't have a job. She just lives. And so he has this trait called cursed because he's cursed, which is possibly the reason he acts the way he acts. So when he was younger, there was an accident and he refused to talk about it. And the people involved in this are no longer, oh my God, are no longer around. Basically, okay, my mic fell. Basically, he has this curse and he could die at any moment. I'm not kidding. It's pretty much bad luck, essentially. So I think that's made him very impulsive. Like he feels no need to stray away from anything that's potentially dangerous or backing away from a fight or an awkward conversation or anything like that because, well, it's just as dangerous for him to go lounge in the backyard as it is to jump into shark-infested waters or get into a battle or have a bad breakup or anything like that. So he's just, instead of becoming a better person, he just became a bit worse. And he was obsessed with Cersei until Cersei married James. And all of a sudden, all he wanted was Nixie. And now that he's married to Nixie, he barely pays attention to her outside of like physical needs, which is interesting. As you can see, he doesn't have many friends. Most people don't really like him. Yeah. Oberyn is a weirdo, and I'm really worried about this relationship because Nixie is not I don't think she's the type of person to take anything he does negatively well. To be fair, Cersei isn't either. Arthur might, but Cersei and Nixie are definitely... Cersei's not to be trifled with because she'll probably just kill you. Nixie's not to be trifled with because, well, she's unpredictable. Yes, she's the House of Practicality and practices the most form of predictable magic, but that's really interesting because she's such an unpredictable person. You don't know... She rarely lets anyone in, and the people she does let in don't really understand her. I don't know if she really understands herself a lot of the time, so I don't know. I don't want to see her get hurt like that because honestly, she's such a sweetheart. Such a sweetheart, and I love her. I think Nixie is my favorite of first gen so far. That could change because in my test playthrough, my favorite ended up being like my second. The one I was least excited for ended up being my all-time favorite because of the way her story went. So we'll see. But for right now, out of all of the heads of the houses, Nixie is my favorite. Her last name is not Simpkins. It's Great Moon. I need to change it because I have my MC Command Center sent to women take the man's name when they get married. But they're the Great Moon family, not the Simpkins. Oberyn, you do not have that much power. Okay. All of that is done. And I know this is really just introductions and kind of letting everyone see their houses and everything like that, but we'll get way more into the story and see how things are going in the next few episodes. But until then, I'm going to stand here next to Nixie and we'll see you next time. Bye.